Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to not a roleplay review. This is going to be an RP talk, a Hell's Gates conversation, if you would. And this time we're going to be talking about RPP. We're going to be talking about what is it, how to get it, what does it do for you. And no, this has nothing to do with the recent RPC member regarding one of my logs. But I did want to talk about it, and I was going to talk about it one-on-one with them, but I just figured I'd let everybody get in kind of on what it is to, what it's like to be like as the RP admin, reading your logs and going over stuff, and like how do you even get RPP? How is it scored? What's the grading? And a lot of people may not know that, right? They may not know. They know that they post a log on the forums and that they get points for it based off that, but I just thought it'd be cool to give somebody an inside look at what a admin thinks about when we're doling out these points, because as weird as it is, we are the ones that are kind of determining how strong your characters get in roleplay. So I thought I'd give people just a my personal insight and my personal take on RPP, what I go through when I am handing RPP out, and things of the like. So here we go. I'm going to read this directly from the wiki, because I feel like there's some really good information here that I use every time I look at a log. I've been doing this for years, so it's kind of like second nature to me now, but there are some things that I look for when I'm giving out RPP. First, to start off with, though, it said there is something that I don't really agree with already on the wiki, and I'll clarify that right now. It says that RPP is awarded in a 1 to 5 scale. I do a 1 to 7. There's 7 Dragon Balls. 7 is kind of what I go for. RPP is on a 1 to 5 scale per color under general circumstances, and a 1 to 10 scale during special events. The maximum point somebody could receive is 5 and 5. I do 7 and 7. Rarely do I give out a perfect 7 and 7. That's gotta be a log that I'm absolutely in love with. But it goes on to say the administrative staff wishes to make that criteria public in order for players to better understand the guidelines and considerations in which we have agreed upon. Bear in mind, this is not an exhaustive list and could change over time. So what the wiki says about green RPP, what in general are we looking for? First rule, I don't really care if it's there, but it asks, does the roleplay log contain a synopsis? If your log doesn't have a synopsis, I feel like that's my job as the administrator to read the log anyway, so I kind of don't need it. I understand why a lot of people will be looking for it, just for somebody who wants to kind of skim through, get an understanding of what happens in here. If it's pertaining to characters that their character may be involved with, sure, or somebody that's going to be there in the future, I can understand, but I don't really need a synopsis. Does the roleplay contain few or limited grammatical errors? That is kind of a good one. That's something that, I'm not the best at grammar. I try to check it as best I can. I really do. I swear I do. But, I got some errors in there, and that's just something I got to clean up. So if I lose some points because of grammar, sure. Is it colorized? Helps, right? Colorizing your roleplay logs helps so much for the reader, because that dark background with the dark green that's just bright enough to where it's not like a solar flare, it helps. It's so much easier on the eyes. But I have taken points away from too much color. I won't say points away, just it didn't hit the way that it should because there was just too much color everywhere. Was the roleplay log a solo or involve multiple player characters? Again, not really something that I care about. I'm the soloist. I love doing solos, and I think 90% of my roleplays have been solos, so I'm not too keen on it. I think what this is really trying to say, even though it's under green RPP, it's have you been soloing the red grind, or have you been interacting with players? I feel like that's what more that is for. The next one, does the length of the roleplay and individual post within express a reasonable effort based on the writer's skill and previous roleplay logs? Yep. Did the roleplay progress the overall story? That's huge for Green RPP. That is huge for me. Did the roleplay express character growth or regression? And honestly, I don't mind a little bit of regression if it goes into the first part of where it says the overall story, right? So if you're writing a story and I can clearly see like, hey, we need to get from point A to point B, and I feel like your log didn't get us anywhere along in that, even if it was like a micro step, if it was just like one of those like, why is this log here? Then yeah, I don't give out, I don't take away points. I don't give out as many points for that. But character regression can also be forward motion in a story, right? Kind of like when Vegeta went Majin Vegeta, he regressed back to the way that he was, and then it helped push the story along of, people not believing him and, there being another reason. That is fine. Was the story told in an interesting, unexpected, or fun way? Yeah, all that helps, right? An interesting story definitely gets more greens out of me. Throw in a plot twist, even if it's a twist that I'm expecting, if you reward your reader with information that you've been feeding them along the way and letting them put like a plot together based off of what you've given them, and then you're like, haha, if you were really paying attention, you got it before we did, even though that's unexpected, but you expected it, right? I think that's good storytelling, or fun, right? Is it just fun? Is it a fun read? I think that is something that we miss sometimes. When we're doing this stuff, especially with what we do, the way that we write and what we're writing, it should feel fun. Another bullet point. If the characters involved in the roleplay were injured, did those injuries appear to hold narrative weight? Now, that's one I would actually move to red. I would move that down to reds, and I will talk about that a little bit later. If the characters involved in the roleplay recovered from their injuries, did that recovery appear to be a reasonable amount for the method provided? Yeah, I think that those two together mean, was there any risk, really, in the roleplay? If you tell me that your character fought to the very bitter end and they're down to their last leg and facing this terrible enemy, they finally win, and then they get a full heal, like right after, it's like, oh, there was never any stakes at all to this, right? If you've had a sensu bean in your pocket the whole time, then there was no point of all the drama that we just went through. So yeah, that would take away. And now for red RPP. This is the one. This is the one that everybody wants. This is the big one, the red points. That's what determines your tier. So, was the combat/training fun, engaging, or exciting? I do like exciting. I do like fun, but for me, personally, I look at combat and training if it is tied to a character's growth. Not just strength-wise, but actually, are you showing us that this character is growing stronger? Like, literally growing stronger. Are they getting a deeper understanding of combat? Or are their morals seeming to change, right? Like, there's so many things that comes from actual strength. And I think when I'm giving, like, I like unique ways to train, but I also like just well thought out training points, well thought out combat. If you can explain your combat and make me feel your character while doing it, that is, to me, is the best way to nail a character, right? Like, if I'm writing Nova, my job not only is to have fun with her, but to make Nova's combat feel different from Rizian's combat. From Rizian's combat to feel different from Sin to feel different from Zulker. Because if I'm just going through the same things, it's basically the same character, right? It's like we approach it in the same way, and then all of a sudden, like, it's just the moves that make them different. So I think that would be the engaging part. But fun and exciting, I mean, it doesn't even always need to be exciting, honestly, for me. Again, all of these, this is just me. This is just Riz talking, explaining how I see things. And when I say it doesn't need to be exciting, like, I don't want boring, like, he threw a punch, he dodged it, he threw an uppercut, he dodged it. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't, like, you know, skid down a waterfall and fight each other in and out of the... Like, I sure, get creative, but, you know, all of that is just scenery. It doesn't... Unless there's a specific set piece, and I'll use Bleach for an example. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen 1,000 Year Blood War, one exciting thing that could show off somebody's strength where I'd be like, yeah, you got Reds just for that alone. Kenpachi cutting a fucking meteor in half, right? Like, if something like that's happening, if you have this, like, oh wow moment, Genesis freaking taking a Agrit's blast with one punch and losing his arm, like, those big moments, absolutely, yes. But for me, when I'm doling out Reds, like, not everything needs to be, you know, big explosions at the end of the world, so on and so forth. Did the combat appear to be serious or a significant threat to the characters involved? Yeah, that's where the weight of everything comes into play, where if there was never any stakes to it, then what was the point of making it trying to feel this serious? And I think, like, I would say I feel like there is a very easy trap to fall in when we try to make something serious and significant, always raising the stakes, right? And I will talk about that much later in this video, but, like, it doesn't always need to be a global threat or a catastrophe or something like that for something to have weight to it, right? It just needs to be serious. It needs to be serious to that person, even if, like, the combat that they're engaged in is like, oh, I just lost and I just needed to be better than you, right? Like, my whole story is I need to be better than you. Good guy, bad guy, doesn't matter. You know, people will lay their lives on the line for that, you know? A big one for me, oh my gosh, this next one is huge for me. If you ever want to know how I did not give Reds, it's because this rule does not get followed. Did the characters involved in the roleplay combat appear to follow the tier guidelines? I know everybody wants to skip past tier 0, man, but to me that is just so big, is finding a way to make your combat and your character fit where they are in the tier system. That's huge for me, absolutely huge, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, if I remember, because all of this is just off the dome. I don't have a script for this one today. Was the RP energy spent during the roleplay a reasonable amount for the strengths and feats presented? I mean, I would say yeah, but I don't always use RP energy when it comes to, especially like spar solos and things like that. It's very important when you're doing big set pieces, but I don't really look at RP energy that much personally. Were the injuries sustained? Yes. Yeah, we already kind of talked about that. Did the roleplay capture elements of the source material, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super GT? I also feel like that's a pretty big one for me. You know, it's just the source material. I'm like, but Riz, you just had Ken and Ryu, and they were throwing Hadoukens. I understand that, and if you read the log, it explains why it's more 2D Street Fighter than Dragon Ball Z. So I still love the Dragon Ball Z elements. I think if for someone who helped write everything in the universe that we roleplay in, to be is not like to be a mirror of Dragon Ball Z without being it. I understand where we would want to kind of like drift even further away, but I feel like the combat and movement and everything is still what keeps at least our role play setting grounded in DBZ. And lastly, did the combat / training in the role play occur for narratively significant reasons, or did it feel forced / unwarranted? That also is a big one. And I think that also kind of ties back into weight. I think that also ties back into the reasonable threat level. Is if we are, every single roleplay that we do, throwing ourselves into some sort of combat, if it's serious combat, right, and it's always escalating, at some point you're going to run out of things to do, you know? And it just feels, forced, right? It's like we call it red grinding. Like, are you red grinding, or are you making these significant action pieces like tied to your character in any way? I'll give you an example, and I'm the first person to throw myself and my characters under the bus. Years and years and years ago, probably early 2000, so pandemic era, when we were role playing like mad. We were in Oda Yakana. It was Indon's like temple that he had, his like little hippie temple that he had. And yeah, almost every log I did with Nova, in some way, she was training, right? And it wasn't always the same training, it was always something different, but to try to make it not seem like it was a red grind, like the reason she was doing this is because she's trying to learn how to fly, right? And, you know, trying to meditate and clear her mind and make other things levitate before she could pull herself off the ground. You know, doing one-handed push-ups until she felt, one-handed upside-down push-ups until she felt light enough, and it was like, oh, I can, you know, do this. So that, I would say, would be a reasonable one if you can do it right. So let's take that for an example. If someone wants to learn to fly, rather than just go out and jump off a cliff and then, yes, now I can fly, you know, I don't think it would be a terrible thing to spend 2 to 3 logs, like, trying to understand, like, if you tell me, like, okay, this is the character feeling their ki and feeling it inside of them, and, you know, at the end of the log, they can make something levitate in their hand, and like, okay, if I'm touching it and I can push my ki up, I can make that levitate. And then the next one, you know, is a couple weeks or a month later or 3 days later, however you want to do it. And now they're exploring that, and they're trying to make other things around them levitate on purpose. They're like, I know when I power up really high, stuff starts to float off the ground. How is that working? Oh, that's different than what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to basically lift myself up. And then this is where I would go to the source material and be like, okay, how did Toriyama actually explain this? Oh, they're not flying. They're technically floating on invisible ki. Okay. So then, like, my next role play would definitely be like, you know, I've got stuff. I'm now lifting stuff with my ki. Now I just have to be able to focus and lift things higher or heavier. There's someone at my front door. And then, you know, go from there. Now you're flying. I don't think that would be a red grind. I think that would be something, a very good story if you can tell it. And then in each one of those pieces, in each one of those logs, your character is showing me like how they're reflecting on it, how they are thinking about it, if they're talking to other people about it, you know, like truly training and trying to figure something out. And if it's done in a good way, I'll be like, yeah, you got it. Like, I would give you more red for that than just saying, like, I went out, I did this thing, I'm super great, I'm a savant at this, I need to go get my front door, so I will be right back. Yeah, if you could show me all of these things, you know, in your roleplay, I'm definitely going to give more points. I, as a person who studied martial arts for a very long time, love the idea of the martial artist, of these training arcs. I think training, to me, gives more reds than just straight fighting and combat. Best way to give an example of that, right? Without the Zenkai boost, that Krillin missed out on. He wasn't any stronger on Namek from the time he met Guru to the time he died. You know? And you can say like, oh, well, he fought against Guldo, and then he got wrecked by Recoome, and then he fought against Captain Ginyu in Goku's body, and then like he fought Frieza, but like honestly, like he fought Frieza and he did nothing, and then he got boomed by Frieza. So yeah, like combat, if you're just getting your ass whooped in combat and you're not showing anything to us, then it's like, I mean, yeah, you'll get like a couple of like defensive reds, maybe. That's what I call them. And you know, I might look at like how did you do, but just attacking and missing, you're not really getting any stronger for that, right? If you show me you're attacking and you're missing, and then like finally you like landed a hit, maybe, right? Maybe instead of 2 reds you might get 3, or maybe instead of 1 you might get 2. But that's generally how I look at reds. Now, there's also one other thing that kind of needs to be talked about, and that's your tier, right? Your tier, to me, plays a lot in how I view your training and what you're doing. And no, I don't just mean like, oh, you're tier 3, so the only way I'll give you reds is if you're in your transform state and you're pushing yourself to the absolute maximum of your abilities and you're about to die every other log. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying, though, that a very big, very long tier 3 fight, if it's done well, I may give a couple more reds, and it's not a bias towards the higher tiers. It's because what those reds mean as character progression, right? So stay with me with this, all right? Just hear me out. If you're tier 0, you need 10 reds to get to tier 1. So that means if you get 3 logs at 3 red apiece, that's huge. That's significant. And now tier 0 does exist to kind of usher you along, right? Actually, let me make sure. Is it 10 or 15? I actually think it might be. Look at you, RP admin. You know everything. Yeah, it's all right. We'll say 15. We'll just say 15. I really think it's 10, but we'll say it's 15. But still, 3 or 4 reds, way more significant than, you know, being tier 3, tier 4, especially till tier 5, right? Because you need 15 to tier up. You need 20 to 25, 30 more to tier up, versus needing 70 to go from one to another. So getting that 1 or that 2 is less significant than getting the higher ones. So if you feel, or if I feel, I'll say, if I feel that Genesis, the other tier 5 character that we have, really pushed themselves and they really showed a great roleplay of their training, then yeah, like maybe 3 to 4 would be a better, because now he's making more progression towards his next tier of power. Where 1 or 2 to be like, yep, he threw some punches, 1 or 2, that's it. It's like, it doesn't, I won't say it does nothing, but it kind of does nothing, right? So those are other things that I look at. If someone is, like Saliath, is trying to perfect his Super Saiyan state, and if he is, let's say he's tier, because I know he's tier 4, so let's say he's tier 3 and he's 7 away, but he did this really good log, and it's like he actually should be closer, but I give him 1, you know what I mean? But if somebody is tier 2 and they get 1, while tier 2 it still needs a pretty significant jump to get the 3. We'll say if someone's tier 1 and they get 1 or 2, like they're still kind of making noticeable progress, right? Like they're getting some gains that you can see, stuff like that. Now I know people will say like, well, why, if you're tier 5, does throwing a punch mean anything, right? Why, if you're tier 4, are you only doing basic exercises? Which, again, martial artist in me, the basics never need to stop being trained, right? You always stick to your basics. You always stick to your guns. And if you can tell me why that's still important to your character, then you're not losing anything. You're keeping your edge, and you are kind of driving yourself forward. Personally, I think that characters, when they get to their abilities and they only kind of want to spam their abilities, I've said this before, they become their abilities. Like, you lose your character and you just become whatever abilities you have. So I like keeping it down to the basics, and I like keeping it down to the basics, and you're showing like, yep, this is how my character has progressed. Like Hypo going through all of his katas that he learned from the Frozen Mountain Village, or sorry, the Mountain of the Frozen Lightning Spear. Sorry, I totally just made up a whole new thing. I feel like if he does that and says like, yep, this is what my master has taught me, and I'm going to take this basis in this form, meld it into myself, and eventually try to take it somewhere new, somewhere beyond, or, you know, this is how I plan on defeating this enemy with these basic techniques and everything like that. Like, that kind of stuff for me goes a long way. That kind of stuff really reminds me of like 80s training montages. You know what I mean? Like some really good. I'm gonna see if I can find one. But like it just really like, and that stuff is how you get stronger. And it's not just by doing it every time. Like, you have a couple of logs where like, yeah, they're training and they're doing all this great stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, now they're stretching and recovering. All of that can get you some reds out of me too. But it, where is this? There we go. But it comes down to, for me, when it comes to RPP, I'm going to give you greens if I really liked your story, right? And since RPP it only helps you, I'm a little bit more giving than some. It's like, oh yeah, you did this great log. Yeah, here's some. Yeah, have it, man. Have these green points. And then I'm being more conscientious when it comes to the reds, right? If you're tier 0 and you get into combat, meaning like, oh my god, somebody's trying to kill me. If you fight back a little bit, sure, but you know, we're a martial arts roleplay kind of community, and it's one thing to get into a combat and like, oh my god, I just lost, I just got my butt whooped, I gotta go train, right? I should go get stronger, especially in a universe that we have that already kind of has metahumans running around. Like, it's not a very, it's not a hidden thing, you know what I mean? Like, we got these people who can do these great things, so maybe I should try to become that, right? And honestly, restraint is, I won't say restraint is key, but restraint and knowing when to like really let it go in these moments is awesome, right? I'll use Beretta for an example. Like, Beretta had his date at Clove Point, and in his date he got into this scuffle, and you know, he kind of got into the same scuffle with Kyle, and his key is like showing bursts. If it were me, I would be like, yep, I just got worked. I just got completely outmatched and outclassed. And maybe, like, rather than it happening during a fight, maybe he goes to, like, unlock his door, or he pulls his door off the handle, and it, like, he crunches it. And he's like, oh, what was that? How do I do that? How do I do that? You know? Things like that. Things like that. If you are tier 0 and you get into combat, I'll throw you a couple reds. But if you're tier 0 and you start training and like, oh, I gotta start stretching and I gotta find a way to get myself to that level, then for sure I will calmly throw you an extra red or something like that. I also give people reds if they are just progressing their character and their story. If you have been subtly for a long time kind of hinting at something or putting pieces together, if you've been trying to tell us something indirectly, right, without just coming out and saying like, hi, this, right, if you've been putting things together where you really have to read it, again, you're rewarding your audience for paying attention, for picking up on subtlety, and then you have this big reveal, or your character kind of moves past trauma, right, or they come to this revelation that, I don't need this, I don't need to be the guardian of the lookout. I'm Genesis. I'm the guy who's gonna go out and fight the world. And it's like, yeah, I've been telling you that story for all this time, and now there was this big crux in my life, and I could go one way or another, but I've been telling you the whole time I've been going this way. And that's the path that you take, and it's like, that's good storytelling. You get reds off that. You've progressed your character. That's the good stuff. I reward the good stuff, right? I reward the fun and the silly, and if you roller skate, and it's like, yeah, like the reason I'm so good at roller skating is because I've worked my muscles, or because I roller skate, my thighs are thick as what, boy? Like that if you can do all that, if you can tell me that you're like in physical good condition, or you're maintaining that, heck, even if, and I won't ever really do this a lot, but if you're like, yeah, my diet is strict as you know what, because it's one thing to say that you're going to stick to a diet, sure, we'll torture our characters on page, but actually dieting is the worst thing in the world. So I won't ever really do it for like stuff like that. But if you can find unique ways to show how your character is, if they're heavily key based, tell us what that feels like. Tell us what that does to them physically. Tell them, they may even see the world different. Like, oh yeah, I perceive with my eyes, but it's enhanced with my key. So in comparison to most people, my eyesight is very sharp. I can see a lot farther, and I can, if I focus, I can, see in low light or see in the dark, everything, right? Like, you don't have to break it down to the most minute detail, but having just some thought about what your character is going through and how that reflects back to them as far as quote unquote strength, right? Even if they sit down and they philosophize what is strength, right? Like there's power in wisdom, and I try to reward that. I think that's the best way that I can say it. And I think that's the best way I can end this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have major disagreements about RPP, throw them in the comments, throw them on DBI. You know where to find me. But my name is Riz, and as always, I will see you next time.